And now, you're tuned in to All Factors Considered. Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
What's going on, folks? Welcome back to another episode of All Factors Considered. Today, another one in the book. This is episode number 44, but most importantly, we're covering UFC 264, and we have the return of a favorite, at least on this show. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. He's been involved in some of the biggest fights that we have seen over the last couple of years, and I'm talking about Bobby Knuckles, Robert Whittaker, if you don't know who I'm talking about, but you know I can't do this thing without talking up with my co-host, AJ. What's going on, brother? How are you living, man? Let's do a little recap just because we're finally back in the swing of things, you know, in terms of regularity, in terms of our programming and whatnot. So this is the first time. You gave me a little love last time, but I'm going to, toot my own horn for a second. First time, folks, I believe in like the program history that I have, I'm up on picks in comparison to AJ. I only got one win more than he does right now, but a win is a win is a win. Am I right, AJ? So let me, let me get my joints off, you know what I'm saying? But no, in all seriousness, folks, I do just want to say it's been kind of crazy to sit here and think about. You go and look at people who are putting out their picks all the time, athletes putting out their picks, MMA fighters putting out their picks or whatever. You see a lot of bias. You see a lot of, oh, they're a part of my team, so I can't pick against them. What we try to do here is try to bring an unbiased, educated perspective to our picks, right? So it's kind of crazy that, we're basically at 50% apiece. So shout out to you, AJ. Shout out to me, man. And let's keep the G thing rocking, folks, because you can come here and you can, put a little bit of money on the picks that we talking about and actually, you know what I'm saying? Make some bread. So, what's up, AJ?
We good. Light fell. It's all good, though.
Okay. All right. So, folks, let's get into what we do best. You know what I'm saying? Let's move into some sleepers. How does that sound, AJ? And start the clock. So
it's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're going to sleep on me and I'm going to wake you up.
All right, AJ, the clock is started. You want to start us off? Who's your first sleeper for UFC Vegas 24?
Yeah, let me get it, brother. So my first sleeper for UFC for the fight night coming up is Jessica Pena versus Lupita Godinez, brother. So Jessica Pena, she's a longtime scrapper, and she's run into a little bit of a rough streak lately, but she hits hard and is super good on the mat, okay? Now, Lupita Godinez is a young up-and-comer who also hits very hard and a very technical boxer and also a very strong wrestler. So this is going to be a scrap, brother. But this is a sleeper to me because Pena's back is on the fence. She's got the chopping block, so she's going to be feeling that pressure. While Godinez is, man, she can take her out and make a name for herself with taking out someone who's fought the great of the greats in the division, in the 115-pound division. But with the pressure and the potential for both fighters to do good or bad, I think this is going to make for one hell of a scrap. Who's your first sleeper?
Well, I agree with you that is going to be a banger. That matchup is incredible, and it's a short notice one too, right? Because I believe Hannah Goldie, she got injured and had to withdraw from that fight, but should be a banger, folks, definitely. So my first sleeper today, I got a couple of bantamweights I'm going to break down, but this first one is Zara Farron facing off against Josiane Nunes, and I probably butchered the names, apologies, folks, but these are some legit bantamweights with two completely different stylistic, looks to them, I suppose, in terms of the aesthetic. Now, the reason why I put this matchup together is because Farron is got the frame of like a Megan Anderson. She actually fought Megan Anderson too and lost to her very convincingly. I think she got submitted or knocked out or something crazy like that. Actually got submitted in the first round. So she has a lot of work to do to kind of build back up and try to get a streak going in the UFC because she's 0-2 so far. But she strikes like a Jocelyn Edwards, man, and she's 6-4 with 4 knockout wins. So that's big. But the reason why this is going to be a banger is because Josiane Nunes is 7-1. This is her UFC debut, man. She's got 6 knockouts. So 6 of her 7 wins are by knockout, man. And she's 5'3". She's got the frame of kind of like Vanessa Mello with those thick tree trunk legs. And she's all about the Muay Thai. So it's elbows, knees, kicks, 2 completely different stylistic matchups. But this is going to be a striking fest regardless. No one's getting taken down. Ain't going to be like that. It's going to be a banger. AJ, give me your next sleeper.
Sounds like a fun scrap there, Derick. So my next sleeper, I got some of them in the heavyweight division coming up. So I got Alexander Romanov versus Juan Espino. Now, Alexander Romanov, bro, I've already brought him up many a time in this show. So if you aren't familiar yet, do yourself a favor, pause this video, go watch some highlights. It'll be about a 2-minute video, even though he's knocking everyone out, okay? Now, King Kong is back, and I'm hyped. All I got to say is this dude brings the heat. I'm excited. Now, Juan Espino, though, he's a great wrestler and really good at striking. Very long and a good fighter. So this is a huge test for Espino, especially because we've seen Romanov just dropping people left and right. Now, this is a sleeper to me because it's 2 heavyweights throwing heavy leather. Someone's bound to go to sleep. Easy as that. Who's your last sleeper, Derick?
Yeah, that one's always a recipe for a good matchup, man. Two big boys in the ring. Someone going to sleep, man. But I got another bantamweight that I'm bringing down here. So this is Tony Gravely or Gravely. I haven't been watching with sound on for my film study, but Tony Gravely, good, you know what I'm saying? Collegiate wrestler facing off against Anthony Bierchek. And you should know who he is. Dude's a UFC vet. He unfortunately went 2-2 in his first stint in the UFC, you know, back in like 2015-16. But he's back, you know, he suffered a loss to Gustavo Lopez to kind of start off this streak. But listen, this dude's got all the talent there to be a real contender in the bantamweight division. He's got to kind of put those pieces together. But this is a great matchup because Tony Gravely, both of these guys are former regional champs, but Gravely is a wrestler, collegiate wrestler, and Bierchek is more or less of a grappler. He's got 15 wins, 8 submission wins. So, you know, it's going to be wrestler versus grappler. And I like those matchups because people will have you convinced that if you're a good grappler, if you're a Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt, that you somehow know how to just take people down and do stuff like that. It's not the same thing. Grappling and wrestling are not the same thing, and you're going to find out. It's the first fight of the night for free, ESPN Plus, probably on the early prelim if you have UFC Fight Pass. So that's the sleepers, man. That's the sleepers. And listen, AJ, man, I got it right before we move into the main card. Folks, more or less, we're always trying to evolve and transform the show. You know what I'm saying? Reinvent ourselves always. So that's what we're about to do here, AJ. Now tune in for the transition.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
That's us, man. Hey, you know, we got a responsibility now. We got to break it down. So let's move on to the first fight of the main card, man. Luis Pena, Violent Bob Ross. This is one of your favorites facing off against a very, I think, unknown prospect who I'm very big on, who is Alexander Munoz, man. So how would you like to start this off, AJ? Let's talk about Violent Bob Ross, maybe. Give me some of the love that you got for Violent Bob Ross. Why do you think that he stands, you know, to make this fight interesting?
I think Violent Bob Ross plays a lot of different roles. You know, he's very good on the ground. He can hurt you with his striking. He's very skinny and long, so both pressure and submissions are going to be very hard, as well as he can tag you from the outside. So he presents a lot of different angles at which he can attack. And man, just in that deep 155-pound division, if this was any other division or any other organization, man, Violent Bob Ross would be a champion because he's vicious. Okay, now one of my biggest things I like about him, he stays calm. He stays calm, but very, very dangerous in there. And he usually only, especially in his later fights, he only gets caught when things get a little crazy. What's one of your big takeaways from him, Derek? What do you like about him?
Well, I like the frame on the Violent Bob Ross, right? This man is 6'3", so in terms of being a lightweight, man, that's just huge in terms of, like, frame, right? And you often hear people struggle with people who have just, like, unorthodox frames that you don't normally encounter, especially when you weigh 155 pounds, right? So what I like about Violent Bob Ross is exactly what you said, man. His composure is something else. His composure is incredible. He has attacks that he can hit you from all over the place, and when it gets to the ground, this dude can grapple. Like, he got submitted in his last fight against Kama Worthy, but we had already mentioned when we broke down that fight and the aftermath of it that, listen, man, he didn't get out grappled, if that makes sense. He just got caught in a sprawl in a transition. So like you said, when the chaos happens, things get a little bit weird, and that's going to, you know, segue me perfectly, AJ, into talking about Alexander Munoz, because this dude makes things chaotic, man. He makes things very weird. But if you are only going by results and you're only going by what have you done for me lately, I can understand why Alexander Munoz, I believe he's a betting underdog this time around. Let me see what we got here. Let me just pull it up really quick, AJ. It looks like Alexander Munoz is a plus 125 underdog and Luis Pena is a minus 150 favorite. Now, Alexander Munoz is a wrestler, right? This is literally what he is known for. This is what brought him into the game. And for that reason, I think that this should be closer to a pick'em because this is classic striker versus wrestler, even though Luis Pena has grappling. Now, do you remember, AJ? I know you was watching Dana White's Contender Series around 2018, times like that, man. Do you remember an individual by the name of Nick Newell?
Nick Newell, nah.
Does the name sound familiar, though?
Yeah, but we watched so many fights, I wouldn't be able to pull it up.
But just so that there's like that kind of like, okay, that name sounds kind of familiar, right? I did the same thing, and I was like, I know this guy from somewhere. So I go back and I watch the fight, and I'm like, oh, Nick Newell. So Nick Newell is the dude who fought with one arm and was like a beast in the regional scenes, got his chance at Dana White Contender Series. People made a big deal out of it and was all like, you shouldn't allow this dude to fight or whatever, which is fucked up because this dude's a savage. Like, let him, listen, if he wants to fight with a disadvantage or an advantage or whatever you want to call it, listen, let him do his thing, man. Dude, it's just kind of like Josh Peacock, which is another individual you should probably look up. Everybody watching, listening right now should look up Josh Peacock. I believe he just won a championship in Lion Fights, which is a Muay Thai organization, and he also fights with one arm. So it's like, these dudes are savages, man. And when he took that fight, when Alexander Munoz took that fight against Nick Newell in the Contender Series, it told me this dude's got brass balls, man. He's got big cojones. And the reason why is because that is the most high risk, high reward fight you could take, right? If you think about it from the layman's perspective, the layman says, who doesn't know shit about MMA or boxing, right? The layman who's watching on the couch, the casual says, oh, what? You lost to a dude with one arm? Like, you must be garbage then, right? Or vice versa. Oh, well, you beat a dude with one arm, dude. So what? Okay. So it's a lose-lose, literally. Like, you don't really gain anything from it unless you're a hardcore fan who actually, like, knows how legitimate Nick Newell is. And you say, okay, this dude, okay, listen, he got it done. And that's how I feel. So that's why I'm really high on Alexander Munoz. First took the balls to do that. Then he fights Nasrat Haqparast, right, in his UFC debut. And that turned out very ugly. Dude got pieced up for 3 rounds. And in all honesty, I have no idea why he's on the main card right now. But listen, if we're into second chances, man, this is a hell of a second chance. So AJ, man, I've been ranting and raving over here. How do these two match up? And then let's move on to the next one. Let's not spend too much time on this one, but how do these two fighters match up in your opinion?
Well, I think the whole scope of the thing goes back to what you said. Alexander Munoz is very highly touted coming from Team Alpha Male, but very under-delivered. So it's kind of a weird toss-up for them, but I do truly believe this is a toss-up. You know, this could go one way or the other. Alexander Munoz, the most thing you laid it all out, Derek. He's a hell of a wrestler. He brings the fight, which I really like, and he has a hell of a chin. He comes to scrap. To me, man, this is going to be a crazy, crazy pace they're putting on, because even though Munoz does come highly touted, training out of Alpha Male, so you know he's very good. Man, Pena is a rough puzzle to solve. And with a lot of fight experience as well. So this one is a lot closer than I think the people are letting on, but I'm going to go Pena with a submission.
Okay.
Excuse me, round 2.
Round 2. Oh, listen, it could definitely go into that possibility. Now, the way I see this fight playing out is Alexander Munoz, generally his offense stagnates if he can't get his wrestling going and or if he can't get his jab going. One of those two have to be going for his offense to really like work, right? So how I see this fight playing out is that either one of two ways. Luis Pena uses his length and his jab and his reach to keep him at bay and Nasrat Haqparast him, but Luis Pena is nowhere near as good of a boxer as Haqparast is. That dude is truly special. Or the vice versa. And this is what I actually think is going to happen, so I'll give my pick. Alexander Munoz takes the center of the cage. He boxes a little bit with Pena, probably gets pieced up, goes for the takedown, gets in half guard or inside control, and avoids the submissions and just rides the fight out. Decision win for Alexander Munoz, definitive fashion, kind of Marvin Vettori style. It's not like, entertaining, but listen, this man needs a win right now, so I think that's what it's going to come down to. So you going sub to Pena, I'm going decision for Munoz. We'll find out, man. But yeah, let's move on to the next one, man. So the next one, man, this is another one where I got to sit here and say, how is this dude on the main card? No disrespect, because this dude's a savage, but what we're talking about is a matchup between two middleweights, Abdul, Razak, Alhassan, facing off against Australia's Jacob Malkoun. Now, Jacob Malkoun, if he sounds familiar, it's because this dude got his head taken off by Phil Hawes at, I believe it was in Fight Island this summer, right? Or last summer. Mm-hmm. So Jacob Malkoun, highly touted, prospect coming out of Australia, trains at the same gym as Robert Whittaker does over there at, I believe it's called PMA Super Martial Arts. And this dude couldn't get fights in Australia, so he basically got a UFC shot. He was not a regional champ. He was not anything like that. He's in the UFC, gets starched in 18 seconds by Phil Hawes, does not land a single punch, and then you get matched up against Abdul Razak Alhassan. So first and foremost, UFC matchmakers, you were throwing this man to the absolute wolves, but if he's game, he's game. And I'll tell you what, from watching film study, he is a game individual. AJ, let me ask you this question, because we started off with Jacob Malkoun. How does a knockout artist, somebody who lives and dies by the knockout, somebody who was previously undefeated, who got knocked out in about 30 seconds to Kama Worthy, unexpected, shocked the world, how does an individual like that rebound and approach his next fight? Does he go Francis Ngannou style, where he becomes tentative and doesn't want to let his hands go? Does he come out with a rage and just try to destroy this dude? What do you think is going to happen?
I think that's the fear, right? That he'll either be too patient or just too aggressive. I think he needs to find that middle ground, man, because to me, when I was watching that Malkoun fight, you couldn't really get much from watching him against Philip Hawes. It was 30 seconds. Philip Hawes put the pressure on him, caught him. It was pretty much, like you said, done in 30 seconds. So I really didn't gather much from that. So I started looking at his other fights. And now in his last fight against Tomeski is really where I started to break him down. And the problem with Jacob Malkoun is he throws stuff and starts dipping like he's going to wrestle every single punch instead of staying tight and throwing it up high. Phil Hawes caught that in 30 seconds. It took me a fight to look at him, where Phil Hawes did it in 10 seconds. So he needs to avoid doing what he did previously that got him. And I genuinely think that he only got the contract he got a UFC contract to get beat up and then, payday and keep it going. And that's why they're being thrown to the wolves, man. He's not really doesn't have the credentials, doesn't have the background to keep being exciting, so they're trying to force exciting fights upon him to see if he can actually hold his water. Now, I completely started rambling about Malkoun and how he actually does it, but I completely forgot what your question was.
No, it's all good, man. That reminds me of, he's not on this card, but I think he's going to be on either like a card in the next couple of weeks. Kebu Bular, he came in on a short notice, got signed to the UFC, got absolutely just starched in his first fight. Now it's like they're like, okay, thanks for doing us a favor. Now we'll actually line you up with proper competition, someone who matches your skill set, something like that. So that's not what's happening with Jacob Malkoun on this one, you know what I mean? But I do think it'll be interesting to see how Abdul Razak Alhassan, how he rebounds, man. This is a dude who's got a lot of experience. He started his career in the Texas regional circuit, right? Fought at XKO. He's fought over there at Rocks Extreme. He even had a couple Bellator fights before, getting into the UFC and things of that nature. Now, this is what it comes down to, man. Did you know that Abdul Razak Alhassan, the reason why I'm so high on him is because he has two knockouts in under 1 minute. The first one took place in his UFC debut against Charles Ward, and the second one was, believe it or not, it happened in about 30 seconds, and he knocked out Nico Price. And when you knock out Nico Price like that, that makes me say, dude, Nico Price is a tough guy to put away. He's touted. He's infamous for having his eye blown out and being like, yeah, like, what's up? Like, let's rock, smiling, doing all that, right? So to me, I'm just like, I see this as a first round knockout all day for Abdul Razak Alhassan, unless Jacob Malkoun maximizes on what you just talked about. So he dips, he throws that punch, and he dips, and he actually does wrestle. Instead of faking like you're going to wrestle, just wrestle. Because the question that I have about Alhassan still is, okay, what happens if, two questions. What happens if someone takes you down? I mean, you're the big knockout guy. That's the only way that you know how to win. 0 submissions, 0 decisions, right? You've never been submitted, but still, what happens when you get taken down? And two, when someone takes the Manur Lazez approach, right, who was that individual who I said came out of Africa? It's not true. He actually came out of not Abu Dhabi, maybe Abu Dhabi.
One of the Middle Eastern states. I can't remember. I was just watching that fight too.
Yeah, so he's the dude who got knocked out by Warley Alves, right? Now, this is an individual who took all that Alhassan had to have, shelled up, right? Used a little bit of head movement. What happened, man? About 2 minutes passed on, and Alhassan was done. That was it, right? So those are the two approaches. And Malkoun, I'll tell you what, man, he has a chin, and you wouldn't say that because you're like, well, he got knocked out by Phil Hawes in 18 seconds. But it's like, come on, that's Phil Hawes. Like, this dude has a nasty chin, and I think that he can weather the storm if he plays his cards right. I just don't see it happening. I think he needs a little more UFC experience against lesser experienced fighters, I suppose. Because if you think about it, man, he entered the UFC at 4-0. Like, that's, unless you're a really highly touted athlete, fighter, and I'm not saying he's not, it generally isn't the right approach to take. You don't want to grow up in the UFC. So ultimately, I'm going Abdul Razak Alhassan, knockout round 1. It's hard for anybody to convince me otherwise. What do you got, AJ?
Yeah, man, I'm right there. Alhassan, to me, is one of those fighters that lives and dies by the KO, and 9 times out of 10, he lives in that first round. Now, that one time when my boy Chaos Willem put him to sleep, he died he was out and sleeping in the first round, but that's a very rare occasion. So unless there's some divine intervention or something crazy going on, man, I'm running with Alhassan KO round 1.
Yeah, man, sounds good. KO round 1 across the board. Once again, folks, the one clarifier that I have before we move on is, we got to see where his mental at is after getting knocked out in the first round. He didn't even get a punch off. It was the first punch that landed. Chaos Williams just hit him on the button, and that was it. But I think that he's a fast starter, and I think he's going to come out even faster this time, trying to really prove a point. So this next matchup, AJ, I'm so excited about this. I don't even think you understand, man. First off, it's probably not for the person you think I'm excited for. I love watching Andrei Arlovski fight, especially the resurgence of Andrei Arlovski, the one that was written off like 10 years ago and is still out here collecting wins, stopping young guns from progressing up the ranks, right? And he's fighting a dude who is on a resurrection of his own. And I'm gonna tell you this, AJ. It's gonna sound weird, but I'm being completely authentic and honest when I tell you this, AJ. If I could fight like anybody as a heavyweight, there'd be 2 fighters. Oh, that's not you. Let me go. There we go. If I could fight like anybody in the heavyweight division, there would be 2 fighters I'd like to fight. Like, one would be Cyril Gane. I just love that kind of, quick-paced, fighting style that Gane has, throwing out the low kicks and doing all the stuff. The other one is Chase Sherman, man. The Vanilla Gorilla, the original Vanilla Gorilla, not the one fighting out of Glory MMA and Fitness. This is the OG Vanilla Gorilla right here. This dude is mean, AJ. This dude he's like that. He's like a Raider, like an Oakland Raider, not the Las Vegas Raiders that we got today, like the OG Oakland Raiders. Like, he's like a Jack Tatum 1960s type cat who's a savage, man. He's a mean guy, and he uses a lot of great Muay Thai for a heavyweight, right? So let's talk about this matchup, man. Andrei Arlovski just came off of I mean, it's not the biggest loss, but it's a pretty big loss because he was on a decent 2-win streak against Tom Aspinall, and he loses via submission. Second time he's been submitted in his entire career. Now, he also underwent a foot injury during that fight, which he used kind of as an excuse as to why he lost, but nonetheless, a loss is a loss, and I think he took it like a champ. So, quick turnaround. That fight happened on February 20th. Chase Sherman steps up, says, hey, man, I just knocked out Ike Villanueva, you know, Ike, the Hurricane Villanueva, right? Second round TKO. And then you want to take a look at his last 4 fights or his last 3 fights after getting knocked out by Augusto Sakai in the end of his last UFC stint. TKO round 1, TKO round 1, TKO round 1, and then, like I just said, TKO round 2 against Ike Villanueva. So you was just talking about dudes who starching people who live and die by the knockout. This is a man with 15 victories, 14 of them by knockout. We already know what there is to say about Andrei Arlovski, but, hold on. Apologies, folks. There we go. We already know what there is to say about Andrei Arlovski, but Chase Sherman brings a real test on this one, and I think this is Chase Sherman's fight to win. I think that Andrei Arlovski is going to have to avoid damage. It's going to be kind of similar to that Francis Ngannou-Stipe, because it's like Arlovski's just going to have to evade the entire fight or look to wrestle, man. Let me ask you this, AJ. In terms of a stand-up matchup, Andrei Arlovski, I think he averages, I got it right here, he averages less than a takedown per 15 minutes. How do these two fare in a stand-up matchup? Chase Sherman does not step backwards when he gets pressed. He stands his ground, and he throws 4 or 5 punch combinations. How do you see this playing out?
Man, to me, I see this playing out bad for Arlovski. I'm a huge Andrei Arlovski fan. I have been ever since, he was wearing the fangs back in like 1998, my man. Like, I love this dude as a fighter. He's a scrapper, got a hell of a chin. He was winning arguably he was winning the Tom Aspinall fight until he got dropped and then choked out. But either way, he was looking really damn good. But to me, man, Chase Sherman is a hell of a fighter, brother.
Man.
Like you said, he doesn't take a backward step. He's there to hurt you. Even if you hurt him, he goes gorilla mode and just literally wrecks people, man. It's very rare he throws crazy strikes too. Yeah. Man, he'll sit on his punches, down the pipe, and hurt you, bro. And he's very tactical and precise, as well as extremely strong, big, and light, which is like a rarest combo, man. And all guts and glory to you for wanting to take on Chase Sherman as a heavyweight, my dog, because that is a hell of a fighter. My biggest thing, and this kind of alludes to what you were saying, man. Do you think Andrei Arlovski is going to be a punching bag in this match? Because I kind of do, and I don't want to see that.
Well, what's the approach that he took against Tom Aspinall, right? He tried to blitz him. And I think that he's going to realize, well, I can't just sit here and stay at range against a Chase Sherman. You feel me? Like, it's going to be really hard for me to do that. So I'm going to have to try to take the veteran approach, either kick his legs out or, blitz him or something. But I just think that it's going to be one of those situations where Chase Sherman is going to walk Andrei Arlovski down. His back is going to be against the fence, and he's going to start teeing off, because that's the thing, man. I'm trying to look it up because I had written this down when I was, here it is right here. So I had written this down. I have a whole entire page just dedicated to Chase Sherman, fucking the highlight notes, because like I said, I love his fighting style so much. He landed a crazy combination. Okay, here it is. He landed a beautiful in his fight against Ike Villanueva, right? He put him up against the fence, and he was sitting there, and he was like feint and jab, sitting there, right? Just like he has this knack for being able to corner you off, stand in front of you, and not throw a punch, not even have to throw a punch, right? But he landed a beautiful 1-2, 2-1, 3 calf kick combo, man. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's a 5-punch combination and then a calf kick on top of it, man. Like, this dude's extended combos and his Muay Thai is ridiculous. Averages 0 takedowns. Like I said, lives and dies by the knockout. So, give me just one way or one, method that you see Andrei Arlovski causing an upset, because he could do it, man. It's hard to write him off these days.
It's extremely hard to write him off. And even though Chase Sherman is a hell of a night out, I think what Andrei Arlovski has to do is let that pressure come to him, get him along the fence, and then start controlling him in the clinch. In the clinch game, throw some knees, throw some ground game, maybe get him down to the ground, get a ground and pound finish. But he's got to do something to alleviate that pressure and get Chase Sherman's respect to stop him pushing forward. Because Chase Sherman is going to continuously put that pressure. And I think the only way Arlovski is going to do it is in that dirty boxing range. Elbows and knees, kind of something a little crazy, something in the mix-up that nobody's expecting. And like they say, the hardest or the punch that hurts you is the ones you don't see coming. I think that's Arlovski's way to win, man. What about you?
Listen, I want to say the clinch. I want to say the ground and pound. But listen, Chase Sherman has like a 77% takedown defense in his UFC career. And I just look at it like this, man. Andrei Arlovski, the only way that I could see like, oh, something crazy happens is if he gets Chase Sherman a little overzealous and maybe he plays possum a little bit and he's like, oh, I'm starting to shell up, starting to get hurt, and then throws a spinning elbow or something crazy and catches him in a counter. Like you said, something you don't see, but use his momentum, to his advantage. But that's the problem is Chase Sherman doesn't get overzealous, man. He's patient, and that's why I like him as a fighter, man. One of my favorite fighters in the UFC, but definitely the heavyweight division. So I think it's fair to say that, let me give you my pick then, I guess, because we didn't do that. I'm going Chase Sherman, knockout round 2.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, this, like I said, man, this is going to be a hell of a fight for Arlovski. And the only reason I'm not going with the finish is because I got to respect the man. So I'm going Sherman by decision.
Yeah, I mean, hey, either one will be a good win for Sherman, but it's going to be a tough test for Andrei Arlovski. And even if he loses this one, I still don't think he should hang it up, man. I think he's still got a lot of fight left in him. So now we hit the co-main event, man, and I'm really excited for this fight as well, AJ. Jeremy Stephens versus Drakkar Klose. Now, I want to say this before we do anything, AJ. It feels to me that people are too fickle, man. Fans are so fickle, right? And they're saying, oh, Jeremy Stephens, he's 0-4 with 1 no contest in his last 5. Why is he a co-main event? Excuse me. Why do I need to watch him? Who is this dude? He's washed up. Yeah, fucking right, dude. Like, oh my God. Jeremy Stephens in his last fight against Kelvin, he looked so sharp. He looked so impressive in the first round. And then the second round came about. Kelvin started, hitting him on the button, started really sitting down on his shots, and it was a quick night. It was a quick night for Kelvin. But I can't sit here and say that Kelvin just dominated the fight because it's absolutely not true. In that first round, he was getting pieced up. And I'm going to tell you what, man, I see this fight being very similar to Jimmy Rivera versus Pedro Munoz number 2 that we just saw a couple weeks ago. And the reason why is because Jeremy Stephens is known as being a wrestler, right? Listen, dude averages less than 1.5 takedowns per fight. Drakkar Klose, he's actually a collegiate wrestler. I think Jeremy Stephens probably was too, but Drakkar Klose, he's a former collegiate wrestler at North Idaho. This dude is a BJJ purple belt. He's finished 40% of his wins. He's a young gun coming in at 33 years old. Not really young, but Jeremy Stephens only 34. But they're both like in the prime, right, of their careers. And Jeremy Stephens, man, I just want to talk about last five fights respectively before we jump into this. So, AJ, it looks to me that Jeremy Stephens, I'm going to go through his last 5. Kelvin knockout round 2 loss. Yair Rodriguez, unanimous decision loss. Yair Rodriguez, number 1, that was a no contest because he got poked in the eyes. So, that fight got called off. Zabit Magomed Sharapov, unanimous decision loss. And then Jose Aldo, TKO loss round 1. Now, AJ, let's talk about Drakkar Klose, right? We all remember the infamous, the viral Joe Rogan, John Anik, DC, oh my God, right? We remember that. And that people don't remember, but Drakkar Klose had Beneil Dariush out on his feet. Dariush came back, knockout of the century, knockout of the year, caused that viral reaction. So that was his last fight out. Knockout round 2 loss. Then he fought Christos Giagos. That was a unanimous decision win, which is very impressive. Giagos is a really big time wrestler, very highly touted prospect. I think he was on a nice win streak, maybe like a 2-fight win streak before that fight. So he got that one. He got a big dub on Bobby Green, right? Huge win. We all know and love Bobby Green. Got a big win against Lando Venata, right? And then, lastly, he loses to David Tamor, who we just talked about, couple for somebody else, a couple matchups ago, right? Now, let me just ask you objectively. I know we're all big fans of these people and whatnot, man. Which last 5 sounds way scarier than the others?
Oh, 100% has to be Little Heathen, man. Little Heathen, Jeremy Stephens. That's a whole list of killers. Whereas, you got 3 killers that are name recognition in Drakkar Klose. More so 2, because maybe not too many people know Lando Venata, even though they should. Yeah. But you go through Jeremy Heathens, man. That's a full list of killers, that are full list of champions that can easily, take off people's heads. So
exactly. So not only does he have a killer's row in his last 5, this dude's been a UFC vet since 2007. You know what I mean? Like, this dude's last win was in 2008, a knockout round 2 versus Josh Emmett. So he's hungry. If you keep coming back to the well after losing basically 5 times in a row. The no contest doesn't count, but five times where you're not getting your hand raised in victory, you know you're a game dude, man. Like you keep coming back. You're saying I'm going to get the win, and I think it's going to be a tough outing for Drakkar Klose. Now, I do think this has fight of the night written all over it, and the reason why is because, like I said, whoever can establish, or maybe I didn't say this, but I thought it, whoever can establish the calf kick first. These are both calf kickers. But whoever can establish the calf kick first, very similar to Jimmy Rivera versus Pedro Munoz, number 2, right? I think will have a much better chance of winning this fight. What's the X factor for you? That's the one for me. It's not the wrestling. It's not the striking. It's not the hooks versus the straight. It's the calf kick. So give me your X factor in this one, AJ.
You took the X factor for Jeremy Stephens right off of my notes, Derek. That low kick is very underrated, very fast and very snappy. I think if either fighter can make that one work, it's going to be the leading advantage. But for me personally, I think that goes more for Jeremy Stephens. A lot of people are expecting, big hands, big things. And I'm expecting a lot of people to forget that Jeremy Stephens has those extra appendages, kind of like how we saw Michael Chandler versus Dan Hooker, where he forgot about, or he's thinking so much about the right hand, they forgot about the left. I'm expecting the same thing where most people think like Jeremy Stephens is going to put full pressure and just start winging shots toward the head. Man, people forget about that. He has some amazing kicks. So for me, if Stephens can utilize that aspect, he'll go real far. But for Drakkar Klose, man, I think he needs to stay calm. For the big X factor for him, and when he stay calm and precise and breathes and stays in the moment, man, he's dangerous. He has great takedown defense, heavy hands, can hit you hard. And, credit to him, the only reason that Beneil Dariush had that crazy KO and everyone had that knockout is because he had Beneil hurt. He had Beneil dead to rights. If he would have just stayed calm and picked his shots instead of get crazy and let that animal come out in Benny and like we all saw, I think he could have won that fight, man. He was putting it on him, not for nothing. Drakkar Klose is doing really good until he lost that mental edge. Once he lost that mental edge and saw blood and started going for the kill, that's when Benny was able to take apart him and pick him apart and see those holes to hit. So if Drakkar Klose can actually stay calm, stay composed, I think he'll do very well.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a good take right there, in all honesty. I think Drakkar Klose, this is like a pick 'em fight to me. Like I said, this is a war. This is fight of the night written all over it. But I do just want to point this out because Drakkar Klose, what he has in power, what he has in just being a great athlete, a great, fighter, or maybe not a great fighter, but a really, really good fighter, maybe not hit that greatness level yet. He lacks an experience, man. And, the age-old proverb, it's hard betting against experience. And Lil Heathen got a lot of experience, man. He's 28-18 in his MMA career, 15-17 in his UFC career. And is it odd that Drakkar Klose, in his entirety, he has 14 MMA fights, 7 decision wins, right? Jeremy Stephens, he has, let me see if I could do quick math, about 46 MMA fights, right? 7 decision wins. That just tells you that Jeremy Stephens comes to close the show. You know what I mean? He's not leaving it to the judges. He wants to knock you out. So with that being said, man, I'm just going to give you my pick for this one because this is so close, so contested. And like I said, man, just that calf kick is really what's going to do it for me. Lil Heathen, he likes the big wing-in hook shots. Drakkar Klose is a little more technical with the striking, a little slower, but a little more technical, I believe, personally. And I think that this is going to be a war. And even though I just talked about the finishing capabilities of Jeremy Stephens, of Lil Heathen, I got Stephens via unanimous decision win in a fight of the night match. So that's spoiler alert for a little bit later. Give me your pick.
Yeah, man. I'm right there with you. And I genuinely think this one's a pick 'em. This one's a coin toss, and the fight could end in either direction very early or be a knockout, drag out. This could be crazy. Personally, man, I was just going with, I was changing my picks back and forth before we were getting on. The statement that did it for me, man, he's here to get paid and laid. We're going 50K to Jeremy Stephens. KO round 2.
Oh, okay. KO. Yes, I think it could happen. But I'm going to hedge my bet on that one. So, all right, folks, well, the time has come. It's the main event, man. This is a fight that has been years in the making, man. So let's just say this fight originally was supposed to take place in 2019. It was on February 9th of 2019 specifically, but Robert Whittaker, he had to pull out due to a hernia. Now, 2 years later, almost, on the dot, couple months, extra, right? But we get Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles facing off against Kelvin Gastelum, right? this is a great matchup. This is a great matchup because if everything goes accordingly, this is a kickboxing match to me. Take MMA out of it. This is if everything goes accordingly, right? Like if in my mind, if like what I want to see goes, yeah, kickboxing match. However, we know that this is mixed martial arts, and we know that you got to use, it's the art of 8 limbs plus the wrestling plus the sprawling plus this. Listen, man. Let me just ask you this, man. Do you think it's fair? Because I think the overt opinion, I don't have it in front of me right now, and I don't even really want to check. I just want to ponder. Do you think that it's a little unfair, AJ, that Kelvin Gastelum seems to be just like widely discounted in this matchup? You know what I mean? Everybody who I talk to, I do a little poll. Who do you think is gonna win? Just Whittaker, 100%. Whittaker all day. And I'm just like, dude, I like Bobby Knuckles too. He's a big name, and that's part of it. And we've seen what he could do against the Yoel Romeros. We've seen what he can do against the Darren Tills of the world, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, Kelvin Gastelum is a savage, man. And you see, he was just on a 3-fight losing streak. You know what I mean? Like, he only picked up 1 win. Well, let's look at those last 3. Jack Hermanson. That was just a first round heel hook that was so, everyone said that was just a weird performance, right? Then Darren Till, split decision, super close fight. And then Israel Adesanya, another really close fight. So it's like, dude, that's a killer's row once again in terms of your losing streak. And I just think that we got to put some respect on his name. I've been a big fan of Kelvin Gastelum for years, man, like for years. And it's finally, like, it's nice to see that he's finally getting some of that shine. But once again, big underdog in this one. Let me see what the actual line is. The line that we got here is minus 270 favor for Robert Whittaker, plus 220 for Kelvin Gastelum, man. I want to start off with Kelvin Gastelum. I think that on the feet, this is almost an even fight on the feet, right? Because what Robert Whittaker has in those quick, snappy punches, right? You know what I mean? Everything he does is kind of tight and just whap, you know what I mean? Bring it back quick. Kelvin Gastelum has timing. So what do we say, right? AJ, I don't want to butcher it, but I'm probably going to butcher it. Timing beats speed and precision beats power. Is that right? Come on. There we go, right? So, yeah, give me the take on Kelvin Gastelum, man. How do you think he fares out on the feet? I personally think this is even on the feet, but not everyone agrees with me on that take. So what do you think?
No, I'm with you, my man. I think this is very even on the feet. And to be honest, I think you can copy and paste both fighters into each other's forms, and they'll do very well. I mean, apples to apples and oranges to oranges, man. Punches to punches and kicks to kicks. These guys stack up very well. So I could easily see it being a stand-up match the entire time, just because their ground game nullifies each other and their striking nullifies each other. So where do you end up when you already started standing? You just stay standing. Now, Kelvin Gastelum, man, he may not be my favorite fighter in the 185 division, but boy, this dude's a dog. Like, no shit. I don't like. I'd say Kelvin Gastelum top 5 maybe favorite fighters. He's a little too ground game oriented for me, but no way in hell would I ever want to stand against this man in a ring. This dude can fight, and he's not going to be put away easy. This is going to be a hard night, man. And I think personally, this fight comes down to who's the bigger dog. They're going to be fighting. It's going to be bloody. If what was the fight before? If Jeremy Stephens, Klose isn't the fight of the night, this one hell of it is, because man, this is going to be a scrap. Now, Kelvin Gastelum on the feet, I think he is a little slower, a little undersized. Maybe we'll see when they stand up, because I'm pretty sure, Robert Whittaker is 6 foot, Kelvin Gastelum's 5'9". So, there's a height advantage for sure, but and a speed advantage with Bobby Knuckles. The thing is, man, I don't know. Though when I was breaking this one down, I gave the advantage personally a little bit more in just that aspect, just the dog aspect, to Kelvin Gastelum, because I was watching the easy fights and how they did. When Kelvin Gastelum got touched up and hurt, he got mad. He got pissed. He was ready to fight and gave Adesanya arguably his hardest match in quite a long time. Now, Robert Whittaker, he looked a little disheartened, got KO'd. We all saw the big counter knockout. It was, a hell of a shot, but he looked a little overwhelmed in that fight is the best way I can put it. And even when offered the fight again, you heard Dana say, like, nah, he didn't want it. And even in the reports, even in the pre-fight presser, Robert Whittaker said, he was like, well, that's not true, but he didn't really claim that he did want to fight. He kind of left it up in the air. So to me, that's the X factor to me. Sure. What's your X factor?
Well, first, I just got to put some respect on Whittaker's name, man. I just think that, in all honesty, this dude is not scared of anybody. I think that this dude comes to fight, and it's just not expressed in the same way that some others. He doesn't dive into the machismo as much as, some other fighters do, the bravado, right? But nonetheless, man, I do agree with you in the take that Kelvin Gastelum might be a bigger dog, and the reason for me is because he's a tweener. You got to be a dog to be a tweener and fight up, instead of fighting down, right? You can go down to welterweight and try to cut and make the weight, or you can say, bro, I'm not cutting cutting that weight. I'll just go up and fight bigger dogs. Like, you know, it's all good. And that's like, for me, one of the reasons why he's one of my favorites, right? Because he's so, how would you say, unassuming, right? You know, like you look at him, it's like, oh, okay, this guy, who is this guy, right? Then you also got to look, he's 17-6 in his MMA career, 11-6 in the UFC, all losses in the UFC. He grew up in the UFC, basically, you know what I mean? He's got a no contest. I think his no contest is against Vitor Belfort. So like this dude has fought killers after killers after killers his entire career. Robert Whittaker is just another killer. Then we got to do the vice versa, right? I'll give you my X factor in 1 second, but the vice versa is that Robert Whittaker, last 5, Jared Cannonier, Darren Till, Israel Adesanya for, you know, the champ, and then Yoel Romero twice. Dude, you fight Yoel Romero twice, you're not scared of anybody. I'm sorry. You're not scared of a person. He says Yoel Romero felt like you was hitting metal, like you was just punching like a fucking truck or some shit, you know what I mean? So the X factor for me comes down to this, man. The wrestling. This is truly like the determination of this fight. I think that Robert Whittaker can turn into a wrestler. You know what I mean? I think he could totally turn into a wrestler. I think Kelvin Gastelum can turn into a wrestler. However, the thing I know about Kelvin Gastelum is that if he has success on the feet, he's not going to the ground. That's it. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like once you see, okay, I don't know if I'm going to be able to like out-touch him like that. Like in an Ian Heinz, I know Ian Heinz wants to wrestle and be crazy and be explosive. All right, we got to take him down. We got to take some of that juice out, right? Robert Whittaker is a little more calm. And the other thing we got to consider is Robert Whittaker does 5-round fights like it's nobody's business, man. So gas tank is going to be important. Who's going to be able to push harder in that 5th round? Because this is a 5-round fight. And just the key, right? I got to give credit because I got this from Dan Hardy, even though anybody can go on Tapology and find out themselves. But you just look at the records, man. Robert Whittaker is 3-0 in 5-round fights in his MMA career, 2 in the UFC, 1 outside of the UFC. Kelvin Gastelum is 0-2 in 5-round fights. So you know there's got to be a little psychology there. However, let's talk about this. Kelvin Gastelum is a southpaw, right? And some people say that doesn't matter. I think it does because the body kick to an orthodox fighter is open and it's right there. Now, does Robert Whittaker say, okay, I eat your body shots, your body kicks, or does he catch a kick, shoot for a takedown, and then try to ground and pound him out, get it back on the feet, and just be like that, try to gas him out, make him tired, make him wrestle? Because that could be a big thing, man. I could see Robert Whittaker trying to expose the cardio of Kelvin Gastelum, even though we know Kelvin Gastelum has a good gas tank, you know what I mean? So outside of the wrestling, outside of that body kick, those are the two big things. I think this is very, I mean, look, Robert Whittaker is a little bit bigger, man, but I don't think that one striking is severely outclassing the others. I truly don't, man. So if this was purely a kickboxing match and if this was purely a kickboxing match and Robert Whittaker and Kelvin Gastelum fought 10 times, who do you think would win the most out of either? Like, give me like what the number would be out of 10.
I'd probably say 8-2, Robert Whittaker. I just think his striking's a little more fluid, just a little faster on the jump. He has that very nice jab, man, and he keeps it low so it comes up. So a lot of people, you don't see it coming and it just tags you, you know? But that's what I would say, man. 8 times out of 10, Robert Whittaker gets the dub. What do you think?
I'm with you. I was going to say 7 out of 10 just because I think Gastelum, man. Gastelum, the one difference here is, let me ask you your opinion on this. I already have mine. Do you think Robert Whittaker has one-shot power?
Maybe not one-shot power, like as a Francis Ngannou would, but I think he has one-shot timing. He knows how to put you out. He knows how to tag you when you're coming in and advancing, you know, on that counter strike. So his timing is there, and if he hits it right, he can. But I don't not just power where you're touching it just on like the top of the head and putting people to sleep.
So it's interesting you say that because I kind of had it the inverse, right? I think that Robert Whittaker, it's tough. I want to say he probably has just like a baby bit more power on his shots, but it takes a couple. He has to string a couple together to actually get you out of there. Now, Kelvin Gastelum, I mean, let's just look at it. 17 wins, 12 by knockout, man. Kelvin Gastelum, what I think he lacks in speed and in power, he makes up for in the timing, man. He just times these shots and just dink, puts his opponent down, you know what I mean? Now, we got to be honest here. Neither fighter has a knockout in any of their last 5 fights, right? But I think it's because they're both fighting absolute killers. So it's, you know what I mean? It's not like you're just fighting, you're just scrubs cans who you can just put to sleep like that, right? So I think Kelvin Gastelum, the timing is everything, right? I always say that, is that you could be super fast, you could be super strong, but Kelvin Gastelum has always had a knack of winning, generally speaking, outside of this big losing streak that he went on, the 3-fight losing streak. He has a knack for winning, and he has a knack for just hitting you on that button and putting you to sleep. Now, Robert Whittaker, we've seen him at death's door a couple times in the ring, right? Against Romero, hit him, and this dude was on shaky legs, right? You know, trying to figure something out. Against Adesanya, same thing. I don't remember if he got hurt against Till, and I know that he ended up breaking Cannonier's arm throwing a kick, right? So those kicks must be strong. Those are baseball bats going at your arms, going at your head, and that's like I guess, the other key factor. So I'm going to give my last take on this one, AJ. I think the difference is Robert Whittaker, he hits you and brings a shot back quick, right? I think Gastelum hits you and just kind of hangs that shot a little bit and then comes back and, you know, he does this reset. You know, you'll see him in the southpaw oftentimes where he'll be like in front of you and then he'll be like, okay, you know, and then like get back into his, you know what I mean? Get back into his thing. So maybe Whittaker could catch him in that resetting period. Something like that happen. Give me your final take and then let's do our picks.
Yeah, it's funny you noticed that because that's exactly what I was noticing with Kelvin Gastelum. He gets a little lazy in the extension. Instead of pulling it right back and getting that guard up where Robert Whittaker does exactly that, he gets a little lazy. Now, personally, man, I think this is a sit back, buckle up, and get excited because this has potential to be fight of the night. Like I said, man, I think both fighters are you know, so close to each other that it's almost going to negate, you know, any pros or any cons that each other's going to have. I think Robert Whittaker has the advantage in the striking. Don't get me wrong, man. I love Bobby Knuckles. If it was just who I like personally as a fan, I got Bobby Knuckles. You know, I think it's a savage. I think he's going to do good. But again, to me, this comes down to the X's and O's about the dog in the fight because they're so evenly matched. I think it's going to come down to who just stays in the fight just a little bit longer. Like one of our favorites, David Goggins, says, all you need is that split second. Once you break him, then you can just slow down, keep on advancing. But personally, because of that, I got Kelvin Gastelum by decision. Who you got?
Well, I'm thinking this, AJ, man. I'm personally thinking that Kelvin Gastelum has a real bitter, real sour taste in his mouth after losing that 5-round fight to Israel Adesanya. And after Adesanya has the famous, I'll die in here, you're going to have to kill me to win. I think Gastelum's feeling the type of way, man. He says he used to carry animosity towards Robert Whittaker, but he doesn't anymore. But even with that being said, man, I just think Robert Whittaker has had higher level opposition. He's had to overcome serious adversity. He's a former champion. People forget about that. Like, he wasn't a champ or something like that. So once a champ, kind of always a champ, really, in my book. That means you know what it takes to get to that pinnacle. And with that being said, I do have to know Kelvin Gastelum has never been knocked out in all of his fights, but I think we're seeing a decision win. Robert Whittaker. And I just want to say one last thing before we get out of here. Gastelum says, I think the winner of this gets to fight Adesanya for the championship. I think if your name is Robert Whittaker, yes. If your name is Kelvin Gastelum, I don't understand how that would work. Anybody would want to see that fight. Kelvin Gastelum hasn't quite done enough as of late to like kind of propel himself back up there. But that's neither here nor there. Who am I? I don't sit here and make championship fights, do I? Even though the UFC... give me a call, bro. Come on. You know what I'm saying? We matchmaking for you over here. But listen, AJ, listen, that's the main card, folks. We gave you sleepers. We gave you the main card, and I got one more surprise for you. So let's get it.
And now, the all factors considered fight of the night picks are in.
I think the picks are in, AJ. So I gave you mine already, but I'll double down on it. I think Jeremy Stephens versus Drakkar Klose has fight of the night written all over it. It's going to be a banger. Who's your fight of the night, AJ?
If we're not choosing main events, Van Derick, I got to go right there with you, man. I think Little Heathen's going to bring it, especially with all of the personal drama he's been dealing with, especially because we didn't see it go well with his personal drama last fights. Yeah. But now it's all solved up. We got Little Heathen back, man. I think that fight's going to be very exciting.
And I'm going to give you one consolation, folks. If you say, hey, man, I can't really tune into the main card, I'll watch highlights or whatever, but I got time for the prelims. It's our featured prelim. It's going to be a banger. I talked about it in our betting show yesterday, but it's Tracy Cortez and Justine Kish, man. That is going to be a women's flyweight bout. And I'll tell you what, Cortez is a highly touted prospect, but Kish is no slouch, man. Fighting out of there at Gym O. Listen, dudes are savages. You know, all these people, all these fighters respectively. But that's our time, folks. That's all we got for you. So, AJ, man, it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor as always, my man. You know, and let me just make sure I got this good. Any last words for the people, AJ?
No, man. Just you know, we love the love. All the comments, all the subscriptions, bro. Every time I look at the YouTube, man, I get more and more humble. So thank you all so much for everything, all the comments, positive, negative. Let it drop. Let us know in the comments what you want to see, what you want to hear. And, man, until next time, Derick, man.
There we go. Yeah, drop a comment. Let us know if you got anything that you want us to cover, stuff like that. You know, ask us a question. We'll answer it on here maybe if it's a good question, you know. But, listen, that's it, folks. Subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Until next time, peace.